Hey everyone, welcome to episode 449 of the All Dolphins podcast for this Friday, January 10th, 2025. Joined today by ESPN Radio talk show host and voice of FAU Athletics, Ken LaVicka. How are you, Ken?
Hope I've let the Dolphins' failure of a season sink in. We're almost 2 weeks outside, but I gotta say, I feel liberated. I mean, you and I just feel like, and I guess collectively Dolphins fans, you feel shackled down on Sundays or Thursdays or Saturdays or even the occasional Monday night. And you know what? I've been able to get back to some hobbies and it feels okay. It feels good right now.
And you know what? You kind of stole my thunder here by your opening statement, because I was going to ask right off the top, are we going to get Livin' LaVicka Loca today, or we're going to get Livid LaVicka Loca today?
I'll tell you this, though, Poop. There are a couple of triggers for me still because I, much like a good therapist, I have not been able to, because I had ESPN radio duties on the Sunday of the Dolphins-Jets finale, I have not been able to express to other human beings some of the pent-up emotions I have. So trust me, there's going to be plenty to potentially get that capital L livid portion of my moniker, okay? Because and there's a press conference that happened too, which has driven me absolutely insane.
Yeah, and this is why I wanted to make it a point to get you back on, even if it's not a live post-game recap, because I kind of figured it's a damn shame that Ken can't join me after this game against the Jets last Sunday. Let's work our way chronologically. Yep. So overall thoughts on the season, finishing 8-9, missing out on the playoffs, 2 on IR, missing 6 games total. Overall impressions of the season, what sticks out to you?
Well, to me, the season turned out the way it did because of a complete lack of concern and resting on laurels of tangible numbers from a year ago and not facing the realities of what was actually on the roster. Oh, we had the top passing offense in the sport. Then we don't need to touch the offensive line, even though we've really pieced it together over the last 3-4 years. And we have a left tackle that you can't trust to play more than at best 60% of the snaps every single year. But we're good. We're good because Tua's figured it out. And Tua, he played an entire season. So surely nothing's going to happen again. We figured that out. He's able to roll properly. It's fine. And guess what? The offensive line was a massive issue, and they couldn't run the football. And Tua, gasp, got hurt again with the same thing he's been hurt with the last 2 seasons prior, where he had a hip injury that needed to be tended to. And so I really think that they rested on laurels that weren't there. And that's why the season ended up the way that it did. It was a little bit predictable. I will admit, I got caught up in the, hey, look at this thing go. Mike McDaniel, surely he can continue to make alteration and introduce new wrinkles that will help halt any defensive catch-up that is that's instituted against this offense, and that never was the case. My biggest takeaway this year, too, from a coaching perspective, is that we use the term mastermind, and I don't want to disrespect Mike McDaniel here, because I think he is a phenomenal X's and O's guy. I think he knows the sport. I think he's still unique and a breath of fresh air, and I appreciate that. But when we're talking mastermind, you cannot have a coach go from the best offense in the sport of professional football to the least explosive offense in the sport of professional football in 12 months and continue to be called a mastermind, including 2 of the best receivers in the sport, neither of them cracking the top 30 in receiving yards. That right there, a significant problem. All things considered, Anthony Weaver, good first go, if it was his only go as the defensive coordinator of the Dolphins. They cobbled the defense together better than they did the offense. Because again, they rested on laurels, and I think there was some arrogance involved in that, and it showed.
And that's part of the deal. 2 points quickly here. That's part of the deal when you start handing out new contracts all over the place when you still haven't won a playoff game in 24 years. That, to me, kind of boggled the mind. Didn't like a lot of those new contracts. I was kind of vocal about this. And the other part of it is throughout the season, you heard comments from coaches and assistant coaches as to why they kept a certain player. And it was way too much of, this is a guy who works hard. We wanted to continue working with him. They're good character people. And I'm like, thinking to myself, I work hard and I'm a good character person. You don't want me playing right guard for the Miami Dolphins. Like
right.
The idea is you look for the best players and stop being so comfortable with guys just because they've been there.
Right. And that specifically applies to the offensive line. If you want to go to the press conference and Chris Greer not walking.
Not there yet.
Okay. Sorry. I will save it for that, but you're right. But there you go. Now you're getting a little bit of preview because this is the stuff and it's the seeming lack of accountability. And in the NFL, you need forethought, you need foresight, and it's becoming increasingly clear to me that none of that in any appreciable amount exists in that building there right across from the stadium.
Correct. And part of the argument that I've heard before, and I don't know if it was, I think it was during this regime, it was basically like, even if you keep the same player, you have to count on improvement from one year to the next. And part of that is, that's all great, but guess what? The other teams also are going to improve from one year to the next.
Yep.
So if your talent level wasn't good enough, just the fact that they're going to improve is not going to suddenly make him good enough. So that doesn't work. And there was too much of that. On the flip side, with the offensive line, and I've been meaning to write about this, I haven't gotten around to it just yet, and I will at some point, maybe next week, is, and I'm going to be weird, and I'm sure the comments are going to treat me very, very nicely, but it's like, I don't know that I completely need to do like a what the hell were you thinking, Chris Greer, about the offensive line, despite the smarmy comment and how it played out, because that offensive line was good enough for the Dolphins to rank number 1 in total offense in 2023 and number 1 in rushing yards per attempt, number 6 overall in rushing. So the offensive line could not have been that horrible. So,
right. What I would say.
Hold on. So he brought back the same cast of characters. Basically, the one significant switch was Aaron Brewer for Connor Williams at center. And I'm sorry, that's a downgrade, even though Aaron Brewer, by all accounts, had a good season. I don't think he's as good as Connor Williams. And then you let Robert Hunt go and replace him basically with guys who are already on the roster. And for that, is anybody going to complain that the Dolphins didn't match $20 million a year for a right guard?
Right. And they tried to, and again, this goes to, hey, we're just smarter than everybody else. We can plug and play. It's fine. And the biggest issue from one season to the next is, yes, you had the best offense in football, and you basically had, for the most part, and as you laid out, you had enough of that offensive line coming back. But here's the issue. When defenses in the NFL are looking at how to attack the offense, the most vulnerable part of that offense is going to be blocking schemes. And that's what they're going to focus on first, to get pressure on a quarterback who is not mobile, who is susceptible to taking hits and being affected by pressure. And so what do these defenses key in on? That offensive front. Hey, how can we continue to embarrass Liam Eichenberg? How can we continue to have that offensive line be a constant 10-yard penalty moving backwards? And it is clear that of everywhere on the offense, we can talk about safeties being pushed back. We can talk about corners being spread wider and not enough room for Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle to get downfield. But first and foremost, it is clear that defenses went right at that offensive front, exploited that offensive front, because honestly, we're talking about average NFL linemen on that line. Other than Armstead, who, again, doesn't play more than 60% of the snaps in the season.
Wrong. He played 81% of the snaps. So there.
You're right. I'm exaggerating. I'm exaggerating like the Dolphins exaggerated how consistent and solid they were along the offensive line. You're right. We're all guilty of it. Okay. But when you have that offensive line with the mediocrity across the board, you need more than 19. You can't have that 19% gap on that side of the line at left tackle with that guy in that stage of his career. And so Tua was affected and the run game was effective. And I'm guilty of another thing. I'm accountable, by the way. Look at me being accountable, Poop. Me. I'm the one who can own a mistake and say, hey, I misspoke and I was wrong here. I was very high. And you heard me many times talking about, man, Devon Achane. Look at him. Look at him as the number one running back on this team. This is dangerous. This is explosive. Well, as the season went on, that started to diminish. And that was the offensive line. That was Achane having a tough time getting to the outside. I don't think he necessarily trusts himself as much trying to run between the tackles. And then Raheem Mostert gave you absolutely nothing, not a single thing. And again, exaggerating, but I'm not exaggerating if we're talking about like week 7 on. I mean, Raheem Mostert did nothing for this football team. The run game completely disappeared. And then that's where the mastermind thing comes in. No adjustments, no ability to find ways to churn out chunk yardage, even with the adjustments the defense was doing. And again, you can't be a mastermind if you can't navigate around that, because plenty of coaches have done it before. I mean, hell, Poop, Brian Daboll with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley 3 years ago now, they were so injured and that offense was so stuck in the mud. He basically incorporated a high school offense and won a playoff game with that. Like, don't tell me this can't be done.
Okay, well, this is where I would tell you that, because you mentioned no big plays. Well, Achane had a 50-yarder and a 61-yarder in the last 3 weeks of the season.
But it's body of work, though. Like, that's great.
Well, correct. And to me, there was an overuse of the guy. And I said this, I like Achane a lot more as a complimentary back than I do as a feature back, and that was the case. By the way, quick prediction here, and I'm not exactly going out on a limb. I think we have seen the last of Raheem Mostert with the Dolphins. Yes, he got a contract extension last year, but the way it was what's what I'm looking for, structured. It was basically more money up front for 2025. He's got $1 million guaranteed, and he's got $3 million or $1 million on the cap. If they cut him, they'll save $3 million. And he was a complete non-factor, as you mentioned. Combination of injuries, the age, and then 2 fumbles, which put him in Mike McDaniel's doghouse in terms of the offense. So, bold prediction. To me, where the offensive line, I don't know, because there seems to be an effort to portray like the passing game, like you couldn't accomplish anything because the offensive line was so bad. To that, I call BS. I'm sorry, because there were a lot of times when the pass protection was really good. There were times to do it. The failure to get the ball down the field, Mike McDaniel kept referring to 2 deep safeties and all that. Well, it wasn't that different than it was in 2023. Tyreek wasn't the same guy, wasn't as explosive, number one.
Right.
And Tua didn't want to chuck it down the field at all in 2024 as much as he maybe did a couple of times in 2023. And there's a quote that he said at one point. And besides, the offensive line didn't have to be good because Tua said, I get the ball out, brother.
The timing. Yeah. And he said brother, too.
Yeah, he did. Correct. No, I'm not misquoting him.
No.
And there's another quote that he said at some point during the year. I don't recall exactly how the key words were: catching completions, which basically made it seem like his focus was almost more important to complete passes, regardless of what kind of pass they were. Well, if you complete a 4-yard pass on 3rd and 9, sorry, no. And one part of, and this is something else I'm going to write about that I haven't. Because Chris Greer, of course, talking about Tua and then how did he perform in his first season after the extension. Of course, there was the flowers and all that. He keeps ascending and all that. It's been in the league for 5 years. I don't know how much more ascending he's going to be doing, number one. Number two, the 3rd down passer rating, not end all be all, but it can be served as a gauge, was way down this year compared to the previous 2 years. Like he led the NFL in 2022 in 3rd down passer rating. Last year, he was 6th I believe, out of 24 qualifying passers. This year, he was 15th out of 22.
And you look at that and you speculate, is it your all-world newly paid receivers unable to get any separation? I don't know. I find that A little bit hard to believe. Is it Tua not necessarily trusting himself on third down in the vertical pass game when the linebackers are retreating and maybe the timing is a little bit off and he doesn't feel like he can split these defenders and find his receivers? That could be part of it. And I'll tell you what, Poop, and you know me, I'm always down to defend Tua, but that with a newly paid quarterback is really, really concerning and also could explain the lack of deep shots that he took as well. Forget the two high safeties for a second. Forget the fact that the DBs are giving big cushion and simply retreating and taking away the vertical pass game. If Tua doesn't trust himself to go up top, go over the top, you're not going to win as many football games as you think you can just going underneath all the time. When your biggest plays are 15, 17, 20 yards and you can't stretch the field 45, 50, 55 yards, yeah, you'll be able to win some games. Because, again, the timing there, I still think it's a difficult defense to fully prepare for because it's complicated. But it also means there's plenty of defenses that can get you off schedule enough and get into his face enough where you're at best an 8 or a 9 win team. Like, that feels like the ceiling right now.
Yeah, which is not good. And, again, since I know there are a lot of fans out there who are going to say, well, Tua needs help around him. Sure, and it's not all on him. Nobody ever said that he was. But he's the one, again, who's got the big cash. And if you got the big cash, you're supposed to do more of the heavy lifting than your guys around you. That's why you're getting paid that kind of money. Because remember, the market is the market.
He definitely was defensive through a good portion of the season, right? Whether it's his play, whether it's his health. Like, he was a different sort of guarded, sort of I don't want to say feelings hurt, but sensitive to being critiqued this year. Was that just me that felt like the way he was addressing reporters, the way he was trying to explain himself, maybe he's putting a lot of pressure on himself because of the money, him hearing some of the chatter, maybe the money wasn't deserved, but it felt like a much more guarded defensive Tua this year.
See, and for me, it felt like an empowered Tua. Like, I got my contract extension. Now what? Okay, like, I get rid of the ball, brother, which is like, let's be honest, it's a weird comment for a quarterback to make when the question is, how concerned are you about the offensive line's ability to protect you? I get rid of the ball, brother. I mean, it's weird. I don't hear comments like that from Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, any of the Jared Goff, any of the.
True. I might be taking thinking defensiveness, and it actually is a little bit of a bleep you. Hey, I proved myself. Yep. I'm getting the checks are hitting. So who are you to call me out on that? I'm putting up my numbers.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. Let me go on a little side note here, a couple of news nuggets here before we attack the press conference, which was fun. Because you mentioned Anthony Weaver and possibly being gone after 1 year. And if he does, job well done.
Yep.
Love Anthony Weaver, everything about him as a coach, as a dude. I mean, he was great to deal with all year. Based on the reporting that's out there, it sounds like it may not happen for him this year because he's interviewed with Chicago and New Orleans, but there are a lot of other candidates for those jobs. However, and this would be good news for the Dolphins, Diana Rossini of The Athletic is reporting that the guy to watch for the Tennessee Titans GM job is Reggie McKenzie, who is the Dolphins senior personnel executive and who, as a minority who's been on the staff for more than 2 years, would fetch the Dolphins 2 third-round compensatory picks, one this year, one next year. So that's something to keep an eye on. The other news nugget, the AP All-Pro teams came out on Friday, and should not surprise anyone whatsoever. No Dolphins were on the first or second team.
No.
Not even Zach Sealer, who had a great year, or Jason Sanders, who had a great year. The problem was there was somebody better. And this is what I said before when I wrote on Miami Dolphins on SI.com, like the breakdown of possibilities for the Dolphins. Sealer's performance absolutely was Pro Bowl caliber. Unfortunately, in the AFC, Cameron Hayward was a complete bear for the Steelers. Chris Jones, even though his numbers aren't great, but watch Chris Jones, how many times he makes key plays at every key moment. Zach Allen from Denver had a monster year at defensive tackle, and I'm not even mentioning Jeffrey Simmons. So, unfortunately, And as for Jason Sanders, he may have been the second best kicker in the NFL. You could make the argument in 2024. Unfortunately, the one who indisputably was the best was Chris Boswell of the Steelers again. And then you look at the numbers.
I know that we're looking for positives, and I know we're looking for sunshine on this Dolphins season. I'm going to say it right now. If you're a Dolphins fan and you felt some sort of way because Jason Sanders didn't get voted to the Pro Bowl, you probably actually do need to go. Like, I'm using poop for therapy right now. You need to go see an actual professional therapist, somebody who's gotten a degree, has gone to school for that, okay? Like, I promise you there are bigger issues to tackle than Jason Sanders not getting a spot in the Pro Bowl. Okay. I promise you of that.
But it's fine to be rooting for you guy. By the way, Jason Sanders, I should mention, because I didn't mention it yesterday, did win AFC Special Teams Player of the Month for December/January, the second consecutive month he won the award. Again, had a fabulous season.
Thank God.
I'm sarcastic. You are sarcastic.
Man.
Okay.
I like Jason Sanders, but if I'm taking solace in Jason Sanders getting back-to-back AFC Special Teams Player of the Month,
I'm not asking you to do that. I'm just saying it.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate you bringing the information.
News and views on this podcast. We share the news and then we dissect.
Chris Greer, by the way, did drop Achan's name as a snub that he appeared to be unhappy about. I don't know the case for Devon Achan other than fast.
No, he had a lot of combined yards, and then I put on Twitter, and I got some pushback by some folks, like something like somebody said to me, like one of the answers was like, "Why don't you just admit you hate the Dolphins?" Why? Because I can objectively tell you, and I'm going to repeat it again here, that James Cook of the Buffalo Bills was a bigger snub at running back for the AFC Pro Bowl team than Devon Achan. So last point on the AP All-Pro team, Dolphins had 4 players who got votes. And the one who got the most votes, that was a little bit of a surprise, was Jordan Brooks at inside linebacker. The other 3 were fullback Alec Ingold, Jason Sanders, and Zach Sealer. Alec Ingold got 1 vote among the fullbacks. So, okay, let's move on to the press conference. Okay, the first question, what's the biggest thing that stood out to you?
Why do we need to come up with constant excuses? Like, what is so hard? And listen, I know that in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. Like, the words don't matter. A lot of that is performative, and every single podcast or radio show pours over the press conference and grades it out. Listen, they're not going to do that. I'm not going, I thought Chris Greer was a C when he said this. Forget it. I don't care about that. What I do care about, though, and this is not only in sports, but I think it's in life. It's within your family. It's within your job. Taking accountability and meaning it means something. I know that there's a lot of my bad. That's an empty platitude. But when you do sit there and something goes wrong, like a hypothetical, Poop, if I was 45 minutes late for a podcast taping, I'd be like, oh man, like I was on the phone and my kid was throwing up. But the least I could do was, if all those things were developing, is just throw you a text and be like, hey, Poop, sorry, man, I got something coming up. Just give me like a half hour. But I just didn't reach out to you. Like, that's a problem. That's a massive problem. And you would feel some type of way if you just didn't hear from me for those 45 minutes. Like, that's accountability right there. That when my kids, they don't brush their teeth in the morning or something, I get angry when they say, yeah, I did it. And then they just walk out the door and I go and you check the toothbrush, it's completely dry. My kid says, yeah, I haven't done it. I'm not going to yell at them. Go brush your teeth. And we're good. It's the same thing with this. Oh, well, we were the runner-up on some of these backup quarterbacks. No, if you fell, and it was finances and compensatory picks. Right? If you thought that was actually, there was actually a desire, a need to back up your oft-injured quarterback who's on one injury-free year.
How many?
One.
Okay.
I'll spell it. O-N-E. Uno.
Like the wonders.
Yeah, right. So you mean to tell me that
that reference went way over your head there?
It definitely did. One of the few, and I take great.
Leoniders.
I don't even know.
You've never seen the movie Nothing You Do?
Oh, yes, I have, but
The Wonders.
Good call. Thanks.
Oneaters. Okay, sorry.
Shout out Tom Hanks. I'm just going to start naming actors from that movie that I remember. And I can't tell you how frustrating it is that you're going to make an excuse about why you couldn't go get a replacement for Skylar Thompson or someone to at least battle Skylar Thompson for that backup quarterback job. Like, that's honestly almost embarrassing. What are we doing there? And then there's the offensive line. And well, when I said that you were more concerned about it than I was, I'm talking about it because they're the most hardworking room in that building. That's the most hardworking position group. Chris, this ain't Peloton, all right, where you sit on the bike and the coaches are saying, hey, be better today than you were yesterday. Put that effort in. No. This ain't a Peloton class. You need results as well. I don't care if they're hard working. I work hard too. And you know what? I am, when it comes to this evolving podcasting world, I'll admit I'm maybe a little bit above average. I'm certainly not excellent. I have a long time though to hone this skill. The Dolphins, your championship window. Thank you. Appreciate that. Your championship window is only so large. And this is another thing that bothers me based on the conversations, the discussions. I didn't hear the word championship very often. Playoffs, not gotten to get into the playoffs, not playoff bound, not playoff worthy. It almost feels like the way this roster is constructed and the way they just kind of tweak here and there, like the playoffs feels like an accomplishment. That doesn't do a damn thing for me. I want a team that's sustainable, can win in the elements, and can go play in February. This team, even when it was at its highest peak last year, not even close to being championship caliber, and it doesn't feel like that's changing anytime soon.
Lot to unpack there.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Is it just me? Am I wrong for this? Like, as you mentioned, like the tardiness thing. When I have a doctor's appointment and the guy doesn't show up, or I have to wait an hour and a half in the waiting room, would it kill one of those doctors to just say, sorry, you had to wait so long? I understand the way of the world and how things work. Would it kill a doctor to just say, sorry, you had to wait so long?
Right. Like, we get it. You've got a PhD next to your name. I understand you went to 8 years medical school, and I know you're smarter than me, and you can say a lot of heavy syllable words. I get it. But yeah, how about a little apology for the serfs of the world, will you? Us peons, just express a little bit of remorse for how long it's taken us to get a simple service. You're right. I'm with you, Poop.
Okay, good. And then, yeah, I've said it before, but to me, it bears repeating, maybe because I like to hear the sound of my voice. I don't really, but I need to repeat this. You didn't upgrade at quarterback partly because you had constraints, because you didn't want to mess up your potential compensatory pick. When you have a team that supposedly can be a contender, really, you're going to sacrifice that kind of position? Number one, because Skylar Thompson had shown and Chris Greer even had the chutzpah to say he beat the Jets in the season finale. They won 11-6, really. And then the playoff game that they lost 34-31. And I defended Skylar Thompson for his performance in that game, saying it wasn't as atrocious as his numbers would suggest, which were horrible. But it still wasn't good, and they scored 31 points, sure, because they had 2 interceptions, a fumble return for a touchdown, and a 50-yard punt return.
Yeah.
That's why you scored 31 points.
And think about it. Within his own conference, he saw last year in Indianapolis, Gardner Minshew come down to what was basically a playoff game in week 18 of the season, basically playing the whole year as the starting quarterback for the Colts. He watched Joe Flacco make that incompetent mess up in Cleveland look like a sexy Super Bowl pick going into the postseason before things sort of disintegrated a little bit in Houston in that super wild card matchup. You can't tell me that Chris Greer didn't see those two things and think to himself, I wonder if Skylar Thompson could do that if he had to play, 11 or 12 weeks during the course of the season. And if he did do that, Poop, and in his brain, he got the response, yeah, he could do that, then we've got bigger issues than just compensatory picks right now. It almost felt like with that response going into the press conference, he was doing prep like I do as a talk show host. I know that someone's going to have one angle and I want it to be a little debatey. So I'm going to find some numbers to support a flimsy argument, but I'm going to keep really diving into that. So, and do so very vociferously and with great angst in my voice to make my point, even though, again, really flimsy, but I've got like 3 numbers I can really base this on. I think he did that. He's like, how can I explain not moving away from Skylar Thompson other than we really like him? Money. Let me look at last year's draft. Compensatory. There you go. Perfect. That's what I'm going to throw out there to him. Like, there's no way that's a real thing. I'm sorry. I'm calling BS on that. That's complete nonsense.
No, I think it is actually legit. Not that it's correct. I don't think he threw that out there.
Then that's insane.
It is. That part of it again. Because here's the thing: is the Dolphins all along were anticipating getting 3rd-round compensatory picks for Robert Hunt and for Christian Wilkins. Okay, depending on the amount of the worst that could have happened if they signed somebody like either Marcus Mariota, Joe Flacco, Jimmy Garoppolo, one of those guys, it would have offset maybe the Christian Wilkins comp pick. So at worst, you would have sacrificed a 3rd-round compensatory pick. Okay, Channing Tindall's a 3rd-round pick. And again, if you have a team that's as close to contention as the Dolphins thought they were, what are we doing here? And as it turns out, Christian Wilkins might wind up being a 4th-round pick because of playing time and postseason accolades, bonus points in the formula that he didn't get because he spent most of the year on IR.
Having you explain that, Poop, and again, I do, because I'm the reactionary one here, I do appreciate the concrete actual facts that you provide. And this is why I love you dearly. Hearing you go through that, though, when it should simply come down to, hey, let's get someone who doesn't suck to throw the football when Tua gets hurt. Oh, no. But what about our compensatory picks? What about picks in rounds that you have maybe a 35% chance of hitting on down the road? What are we doing? GM is a difficult job. I get it, but it's not that difficult. That's overthinking it, acting like we're going out and we're flirting with the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, and we have to take inventory of high-end picks to back up Tua. No, you're just looking for someone that, God forbid, you might give up a 3rd-round or a 4th-round pick for, and guess what? Since those are compensatory, you still have them. What are we doing? It's just so overthinking. He went out and he traded for Tyreek Hill. He went out and he drafted Jalen Waddle. He said, hey, you know what? With Mike McDaniel, this is going to be a fast offense. Fast, really. That's as simple as it gets. The dumbest football fan could say, you know what? Boy, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty fast offense. That seems like an identity. And now when it comes to a backup for the oft-injured quarterback who you got by the grace of a higher power, a full season of health from, you're going to start worrying about and fretting about and chewing your nails over compensatory picks? Come on, man. Come on.
No, that was ugly. Any thoughts? Like you don't have thoughts on everything. Where do you sit on the whole Tyreek Hill situation?
Okay. I am very pro player typically. Okay. I am. Like even in college.
Omar?
He's got a much better head of hair than me, by the way. And even in the college realm where I live a good portion of my professional life, and it has certainly changed the landscape, especially to school like Florida Atlantic, and made it a lot more difficult, right? I am still pro player getting theirs and having the independence to be able to look out for themselves like everyone else would like the ability to do in their everyday life. But where I draw the line, I don't like when people quit. I don't like when they take their ball and they go home. In fact, if Tyreek Hill would have taken the ball more this season, it would have been much easier to see him go home. Yeah. I don't like when players quit, and especially someone of his ilk. And it's always something with Tyreek, right? It's always Broward County courts, paternity suits against Tyreek Hill. It is run-ins. It is his past. It is things he says. It's lawsuits about him with an influencer's mother in the backyard breaking her leg. And through all of this stuff, the Dolphins are a unified front. Tyreek's our guy. We're here for him. His house catches on fire, and the team is so accommodating to him, show him nothing but love, and there for him. It's been nothing but a familial experience for Tyreek Hill. And
contract.
Yeah, and the new contract. At that juncture of his career, where don't forget, 2 years ago, he was talking about this is my last contract. The retirement word had been brought up, and then the Dolphins pay him again. So he's gone through a lot of stuff, not his fault. Some stuff, it appears, his fault. And the Dolphins have been nothing but, hey, man, you're our guy, and we believe in you. You are a heart and soul of this locker room. And for him to do that, in that game, things aren't going well, so he just quits. He up and quits in a 12-point game. I mean, what are you doing, man? That rubbed me the wrong way, and that is not the type of guy that you can base the franchise around. Like, for me, great player, but that's a non-starter. Like, I would be, and now you have no leverage. Yeah. Like, why do you want that? You've already got a lot of question marks. You've already got an issue with culture, it appears. Guys showing up late, who, by the way, I'd be willing to bet a lot of them following the lead at 10. I think he probably empowers that a little bit. If you see Tyreek doing it, hey, I'm going to do my own thing. You can't have him back if you truly feel like Mike McDaniel saying we got to change the tardiness. There was a stern talking to after the Jets game on that Monday. Well, you know what? If you're going to stand by building culture in that locker room and in that building, and you truly are Mike McDaniel going to put the fist down and say, hey, you got to abide by these rules. And that's how we get to the standard we think we can be. I don't think Tyreek Hill can be in that locker room. Not after that. I'm sorry. You can't quit. Don't quit.
Okay. Here's my take on this, if I may. I'm going to play devil's advocate because I like doing that.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Good
While
movie.
It was not portrayed, the communication aspect of it was obviously very poor. Tyreek played with medical stuff the entire season, whether it was wrist, ankle, thumb, foot, you name it. Okay. I ask myself if I have a major issue if he's played hurt the entire year, and Drew Rosenhaus said he actually had a broken wrist, and if he's looking at the scoreboard and it's 28-0 Denver, 24-0 Denver, and then 31-0 in the third quarter, and he's saying, I've been playing hurt the whole year. There's no reason for me to continue to do this. We're done. This is where it would have been nice had he communicated that better, or told the assistant coaches instead of relaying to Mike McDaniel, according to him, that he's out, that it wasn't a new injury. So I don't know that it bothers me. I don't like players quitting on their teammates. I get that. I completely get that. If you're dealing with a guy who's playing through stuff the entire year, and then basically the Dolphins are done by the time he says, I'm done. I don't know that it bothers me all that much. Then you have the post-game comments, though.
Right. That's the issue.
Well, correct. And then he's like, I'm out. And it's like, okay, why? It's not because the Dolphins haven't taken care of you financially, because they gave you a contract they had no business giving you, no reason to give you. The last one they gave him, number one. Number two, you're the focal point of the offense. Even though you didn't get as many targets as 2023, you still led the team in targets. So what is it? You're frustrated because the Dolphins didn't make the playoffs? Dude, This is his 10th year. Ninth year. So first time he didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
Yep. I mean, did you ever, your rookie contract said you had a guarantee you're going to make the playoffs every year? It happens.
I agree to an extent on the injury thing. There's also a lot of guys out there on that field that did play all four quarters that had some pretty serious stuff, I'd imagine, as well. And they were still going out there.
Being one.
Right. So But fine. Let's go ahead and we can give Tyreek a pass for that. I get it. At this point, especially at the age he is, like, hey, if you can keep yourself solid for next year, you need things in it. What is a meaningless quarter of football now? You need things to sink in. You're upset. You're frustrated. I get that. That's human nature. But then that performative bull bleep in the locker room, this innocuous, cloudy, cryptic, not outright saying it, but insinuating that he's out, that he's leaving. And it's not only that, then he gets on social media. Hey, have some guts and say what you mean. Okay? Have some guts and actually outright, hey, you know what? Antonio Brown, he sucks. Okay. But at the very least, we knew exactly where we stood with that guy with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He took his jersey off. He pranced off the field. He said, I'm out. And you know what? He went into a car and jumped on Instagram Live and started talking about his rap album coming up. Okay. So you knew he was out. He at least stood on business, as the kids say. Tyreek Hill, same thing with Javon Holland and all this social media cryptic stuff. Jalen Ramsey, if we want to go to that extent. Stop it. Grow up. You're all in your late 20s or your 30s. Enough already. This isn't college where I would put up on AOL Instant Messenger these really sad song quotes because I wanted somebody to see them and then IM me at 3 a.m. What's wrong? You okay, man? So that then I could spill my heart at them because I was having some issues with some girl. This is the NFL, man. Like, stop. So that's the part that bothered me the most. And that's why if Tyreek Hill's not back, I'm not going to shed too many tears over it. That's immature crap. And then Drew Rosenhaus making this whole thing worse. Did you see today, Poop? At the time that we're recording for continuity purposes, Drew Rosenhaus is on the Pat McAfee show. And he's talking, right. But he's talking about the wrist injury. And as Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk, pointed out, the Dolphins didn't indicate any sort of wrist injury when it came to Tyreek Hill until week 10 of the season. That's a problem. That's a potential problem if the Dolphins knew about it. And so now we're back to, just like we were with Tom Brady and flirting with him and recruiting and Brian Flores and all that. Now we're back to, are the Dolphins skirting the rules? And so it's just one thing after another.
No, that's fair. But the part of it is obviously, like Chris Greer said at the press conference, that they had fruitful, productive conversations with Tyreek. I would hope there was like a clear setting of the rules. Because here's the thing. I'm sorry, but if it's going to be a clear case of addition by subtraction, like it was in Buffalo, as I made the point even at the time of the trade when they got rid of Stephon Diggs, then do it. I don't know that it's that clear cut because Stephon Diggs just wasn't a great player by the end of his tenure in Buffalo, and Tyreek Hill, again, to me, didn't look right the entire season physically. And the last view of him when he was right, he was basically the most explosive player in the NFL. Are the Dolphins really better if they dump him and understand everything that comes with him, and which is disruptive to say the least? But they take a cap hit by trading him. Number one. Number two, you're going to get pennies on the dollar because of his age, salary, and the what comes with him as well. Is that really going to improve the team to move him?
No, it's not. And you're 100% right about that. It is not as clear-cut, it nearly as close as Stephon Diggs. That's a great comparison. You're 1,000% right on that. That said, it goes back to what we were discussing earlier with Tua. If Tua's got this confidence block, if he's got this issue of pushing the ball down the field, he doesn't feel like he can hit these windows as we speculated, maybe especially on third down and especially with these explosive plays, maybe going on with Tua a little bit, especially as the timing is maybe thrown off by a half second. Like, what is Tyreek Hill going to be anyways? Because he didn't look the same, no. And it wasn't just his injuries, but also he was neutralized in a big way. And Tua didn't appear to have the want to try and force him the football. So I don't know. I don't know if there's a great answer to this. You're right. It's subtraction by subtraction, but you might just have to go to work and try and cobble it. Maybe you continue to work on the tight end position. Maybe you're able to find a productive possession receiver in free agency, and you try and churn out yards that way. Listen, we're talking about a mastermind coach here, right?
Whoa, Ken, my friend. That's what they did this year. How'd that work out? All they did was possession type stuff with Achane and Jonnu Smith. That's all they did. It was complete short passes. That didn't work. There was very, very little explosive element to the offense in 2024, and that didn't work.
So, but Tyreek Hill was on the field, so then now you're going to put him in the same spot where he can whine and moan again and be upset, and potentially another season of going to marinas and hitting employees over the back of the head with his agent standing 3 feet away from him. Like, what do we?
You have to go there.
It's because I realized I forgot that one in the whole litany of things that I brought up. So I wanted to make sure that I had the final check mark there. There's no good answer to this, but at the end of the day, he quit, and then he put on a performative act and portrayed himself as a victim, and I didn't like that. Not on a team with Zach Sealer, not on a team with Calais Campbell, not on a team with Jonnu Smith, who didn't make any excuses all year long. I didn't like that. Like Jalen Waddle, he had the same frustrations this year that Tyreek Hill did, maybe to a lesser extent, but he's not sitting there talking and portraying himself as a victim. I didn't like that.
Okay, but see, I'm going to disagree with you on one thing. I do not think it was performative in the least. I think it was reactionary because first of all, it's come out that Tyreek did not want to talk after the game. He was made to fulfill his media obligations.
Good, do it. It's your obligation.
Okay, particularly as a team captain. And then he just couldn't control because it basically there was a buildup, and Tyreek, newsflash, is very emotional, and newsflash, perhaps may not be the most mature person in the world, and he just kind of built himself up, and he just let it go. I don't think it was planned that when basically he was told you have to talk to the media. I don't think immediately went in his mind, okay, you want me to talk? I'm going to create this mess here. I think he got himself worked up.
I just don't like. Again, I'm around college student athletes all the time. 19-year-olds don't pull that crap. Listen. If it was right after the game and it was a close game and he didn't have time to decompress and he's out there and he's just speaking free flowing off the top of his mind, he is trying to consume what just happened, then I'd understand it. I get it. He didn't get enough of a cool down. But dude, you took yourself out for an entire final quarter of football. You had 15 minutes of football and 25 to 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes of real time to get yourself calmed down and get in the locker room and be able to articulately convey what you're thinking. But I'm not, because he's a little bit immature, I'm not going to give a pass to a guy who's in his 30s who wears a C on his shirt. I'm not going to do that, Poop.
Understood, and then we could get into the issue of why they wear a C to begin with, but that's a different topic. We don't need to get into this. The other part of it too is there still some nebulous non-resolution as to whether he does want to get traded or not, and he could, like I said, he could squash the whole thing very quickly by just putting out something on social media.
Right.
I mean,
it's been almost an entire week at this point. Oh, no, it's been more than an entire week. It's been 2 weeks almost at this point.
Right. But it's one of those things where I get the knee-jerk reaction of a lot of fans saying, get him the hell out of there. To that, I would say, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. No, I understand. And there's a component of meatball fandom, and I fall victim to this at times too. You're going to quit on your brothers. This is about warriors. This is about war. But again, he gave himself time to cool down because he took himself out of the game with the captain insignia on his chest, and then still couldn't act like a professional. And that's where you lose me. I don't know what value Tyreek has. I suspect it is very uninspiring to even motivate. I would even probably go right to 4. Sorry, I had to get in my camera shot there. 4 in that spot. But man, but hey, you know what? That's another 4th-round pick that Chris Grier can hoard and not use this offseason.
Wow. Wow. I think that's actually a final shot. I think that's probably a good way to end it. I think I think after the fact, I can determine now that we got LaVicka Loca.
Yeah. I would feel much better if I felt like they were going to be able to apply a path that was going to be able to reconstruct this thing in an off season. But there are too many warts and flaws right now for me. Forget championship. We said all year, Poop, after the first 6 weeks of the season, Tua injury, the slow start. I think it was the loss after the Colts game. You and I were talking and say, hey, playoffs is the goal. I don't see a world in which, and I'm probably being way too harsh on Chris Grier, but again, you've had this talent, you've had these guys, and I don't like excuses. Just take accountability. I don't see what you can do in this offseason that is going to lead me to believe going into week 1 next year that this is anything other than playoffs or the ceiling. And I don't think that's disrespectful to the fan base. That's a frustrating realization, I think, for this fan base, and I get it.
Oh, and I forgot to ask you, in 30 seconds or less, as a fan, were you upset that both Mike McDaniel and Chris Grier were brought back for another season?
No. I thought that would have been really rash. I thought the way things were going on that Sunday against the Jets, that maybe that's the type of performance that forces Stephen Ross's hand. But no, I'm not upset about it. I expected it to happen, but I do think that maybe they can get this back to a playoff team. No matter who they brought in, though, this offseason, there's not enough on this roster to then magically shape it into a championship contender. It's not going to happen.
Damn, that's depressing. See, and I'm going to go the other way. I think with the right moves and a perfect storm of good luck, good fortune, and things going right, absolutely the Dolphins can do it.
Wow. What if the Chiefs accidentally release Patrick Mahomes and they're unable to take it off the table in league offices and the Dolphins swoop in and get Mahomes? Now that would be a stroke of luck. I think that would change things, Poop.
Yeah, I don't think you passed the first 28 teams on the waiver wire or whatever it is. Yeah, I couldn't even do it. I don't want to say it's bleak, but Dolphins have a lot of work to do in the offseason to make themselves actually just to bring themselves back to where they were at the start of last offseason. So on that depressing note, he is the one, the only Ken LaVicka, ESPN Radio, ESPN Sports Radio. When's your next show, my man?
I will be on next Thursday and Friday in the midday. Check your local ESPN Radio national listings. And Poop, just so you know, it's a long off season. I have plenty of stocked up 4th-round picks in my house if you want to come over and we can use some of them up. Okay, we'll put those to use this year. I've got them in the freezer. Yeah. Wow.
There's a morbid joke to be made there, but I'm not going to do it. It's not necessarily my biggest quality here. Catch my work, please, on Miami Dolphins on SI.com. The podcast is going to take the weekend off. How about that? Be back Monday. Oh, and my quick predictions for this weekend. It wouldn't be right to do it. In the AFC, Buffalo, I think, is going to spank Denver.
Yeah.
Baltimore, I think, is going to handle Pittsburgh pretty easily. I think the Chargers are going to win at Houston, which to me is kind of a weak division.
Mm-hmm.
In the NFC, I think Philly's too good on the lines not to handle Green Bay. I like the Rams against the Minnesota Vikings because I have trust issues with Sam Darnold. Washington, Tampa Bay, I'm always going to go against the rookie quarterback, so give me Tampa Bay in that one.
Yeah, I agree with all of those actually, except the Vikings, especially now that that's played basically at a neutral site. I think that the Vikings are going to win that game.
And quick Dolphin history lesson on the way out, because since we brought that up, actually, the Dolphins did have one of those unfortunate instances where they had to move a game because of fires. This was the wildfires in Southern California. It was a Monday night game against the San Diego Chargers in 2003, was played in Arizona. The quarterback was Brian Greasy. while Jay Fiedler was dealing with an injury, and the Dolphins won in that Monday night game in what may have been Brian Griese's best game as a member of the Dolphins. The Dolphins won 26-10 that night.
How about that? Sun Devil Stadium. Yeah.
Was that Sun Devil Stadium?
That would have been. That's where the Cardinals were playing at that point.
Okay, there you go. Thank you for that nugget, Mr. LaVicka.
That's the only thing I could add to that. And I've met Brian Griese a couple of times. That's all I've got.
Okay, that works. Son of Dolphin Hall of Famer Bob Griese, of course.
That's right.
Please like, subscribe, share all that good stuff. Have a great weekend, everyone. We'll catch you guys on Monday.